السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا ونبينا Muhammad وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Alhamdulillah, in our lessons on Imam Zarnuji's Ta'lim al-Muta'allim, we're continuing first of all to look at the discussion on respect for knowledge and its people and the role of respect in knowledge. Now, some people have issues with this at a practical level, that some of the idea of unconditional respect, is this from, there's a whole bunch of contemporary terminology, some of it rightful, but, we have to be clear that all respect in our deen is conditional upon that which is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? لا طاعة لمخلوق في معصية الخالق. There's no obedience to creation in disobedience to the Creator. So we know that very clearly, number one. Number two, the purpose of this listening to one's teacher is not, and a true teacher is characterized by the quality of nasiha, right? That they are seeking good for the student, right? Because what is nasiha? It's talabul khair fi haqqil ghayr, seeking good with respect to another, as we know. So a true teacher, when they advise you, they're not doing it for their benefit, they're doing it for your benefit. So we listen to them out of realizing that. And that's why, as we we don't rush to commit to teachers, etc. Right? And also, part of consulting is that if a teacher suggests something that doesn't appear to be correct or would appear to be harmful, etc., consult other teachers privately, respectfully, that what do I do? Some teachers maybe have very high resolve. They say, you know what? Don't go back to your home country, don't do this, don't do that. But also sometimes you just have to be clear with them. For example, when my sister was getting married, one of my teachers in Damascus said, don't go back to Damascus. Don't go back to Toronto. So I explained that if I don't go back to Toronto, it'll cause serious negative repercussions in our family. I'm the oldest son, etc. He said, oh, okay. And would your parents be displeased? I said, yes. But I'm willing to listen to you, but if, And he said, of course, then you have to go, because you have to. So sometimes we give insufficient information to our teachers. Right? So should I continue to study or take out 2 weeks to attend a wedding? They say, no, continue studying. But if you explain fully, so that's part of, and how do we learn that? By consulting other teachers maybe, that look, this is the situation, what do I do? I say, just clarify, right? Clarify. So that's important to be very clear about. Okay. Now, he tells us, right? وَيَنْبَغِي لِطَالِبِ الْعِلْمِ أَنْ What do you have, Sidi? وَيَنْبَغِي لِطَالِبِ الْعِلْمِ أَنْ يَسْتَمِعَ الْعِلْمِ وَالْحِكْمَةِ بِالتَّعْظِيمِ. So he says, it's befitting the seeker of knowledge, from the section on respect for knowledge, it is befitting the seeker of knowledge to listen to knowledge with veneration, right? With veneration, right? والحكمة بالتعظيم والحرمة. وإن سمع مسألة واحدة. Even if you hear one issue of knowledge, you hear it respectfully, because what is religious knowledge? Religious knowledge is the guidance of Allah and His Messenger, interpreted. And what is fiqh? It's the rulings related to actions as understood and in the Sunnah. What is Islamic beliefs? What is each of these sciences? They're either understood from them or are the sound ways of understanding. Things like this, usul al-fiqh or ilm al-hadith, right? So this is one of the very important matters, right? That from the veneration of knowledge is listening to knowledge with veneration. And he says, وَقِيلَ مَنْ لَمْ يَكُنْ تَعْظِيمُهُ بعد ألف مرة كتعظيمه بعد أول مرة فليس بأهل للعلم. They said that someone whose respect for knowledge is not the same after repeating an issue 1,000 times, the same as their respect when they first hear it, they're not fit for knowledge. Right? So you go to a class and they're repeating a hadith, the first hadith, the hadith of intention. You've heard it lots of times. Right? No. These are the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is the gift of guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you treat it with that respect. Right? وينبغي لطالب العلم أن يختار نوع العلم وينبغي لطالب العلم أن لا يختار نوع العلم بنفسه. It's important for the seeker of knowledge not to choose what they study by themselves. It's important for the student of knowledge not to choose their knowledge by themselves. Right? But rather, what do? He says, بل يفوض أمره إلى الأستاذ. But rather one consigns one's affair to one's teacher. Right? That, what do I study next? Because they've done it, you haven't. Because if you already had the knowledge, you wouldn't need to study it. So your teachers have studied. And if they're advising you, they're not doing it for their own benefit. If you have teachers who you know are only telling you because they will benefit from you, then they don't have nasiha for you. Right? So this is, this is very, very critical. Okay? This is very, very critical. And then he says, فإن الأستاذ قد حصل من التجارب في ذلك, right? Because the teacher has attained through experience in this, so that we benefit from them. فكان أعرف بما ينبغي لكل واحد. So they know better what each person needs and would benefit from. Right? Right? So they would know better what each one would benefit from. Right? وما يليق بطبيعته, and also what suits their temperament. Right? Especially after covering the basics, because there's certain things everybody needs to know. But for example, I have a friend of mine, I found it a bit strange that when they went to study, one of our teachers told him, you shouldn't study theology. And my friend loved theology. Then one day we had a disagreement. And he started arguing me in the middle of the street and raising his voice at me and making arguments. I'm like, by the way, you know this term is the term rebel. It's used differently between British English and American Canadian English. So you're making that up. I said, Sayyidi, just take a deep breath. Go check the Oxford Dictionary of Modern American Usage, and you'll see that we have a different usage. He said, that's wrong. I said, do you know American usage? I said, no. I said, go check it out, and then we'll talk. And he came and apologized. So he was given to having this intensity. It was not good for him at that stage to go into too many of these argumentative sciences. It's not good for how he is and what he needed at that time. Right? So but the shuyukh know that from their experience. Right? They're not trying to hold you back. They're not trying to hold you back. So regarding this, he says, وكان الشيخ الأجل الأستاذ شيخ الإسلام برهان الحق والدين يقول كان طلبة العلم في الزمان الأول يفوض أمورهم في التعلم إلى أستاذهم. كانوا يفوضون أمورهم في التعلم إلى أستاذهم. وكانوا يصلون إلى مقصودهم ومرادهم. So Imam al-Marghinani, his teacher, said that in the first generations, seekers of knowledge would consign their educational trajectory to their teachers, as a result of which they would attain unto their goals and their aspirations. However, وَالْآنَ يَخْتَارُونَ بِأَنفُسِهِمْ, but now they choose for themselves what they're studying, whom they're studying with, how much they're studying. So what's the consequence? He says, وَلَا يَحْصُلُ مَقْصُودُهُم. As a result, they don't attain unto their purpose. They don't attain unto their purpose, their aim. مِنَ الْعِلْمِ وَالْفِقْهِ, in knowledge and in fiqh, in religious understanding. لأنهم لا يدرون أي العلم أنفع بهم, because they don't know what knowledge is more beneficial for them. وأي علم يليق بطبيعتهم, and what knowledge is suitable for their temperament. What knowledge is suitable for their temperament. So for example, when I was in Damascus, I'd made this decision that I'm not ever going back to the West. Therefore I decided, you know what? I'm not going to study fiqh and aqeedah and these things. I'm going to focus on reading the great books of Islamic civilization, because I'm going to find a Muslim country to live in and die. So I presented that. I was going to present that to one of my teachers, but what he did instead, he went and he gathered us together. Just give me a second. So before I could ask the Shaykh, he gathered a few of us together and he said, you should focus on Hanafi fiqh. I was thinking, why? And then I asked him, Sayyidi, why would, he said, I think this is where you can be of more benefit, but said, pray istikhara. And alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted insight to people who have experience. And what is suitable for their temperament. Right? Because their concern, they are inheritors of the Prophet ﷺ. Their concern is what is of benefit to you and what will enable you best to be of benefit to the ummah. Right? And that's how we need to approach it. Now, if you're not clear, ask with adab. Ask with adab. Seek clarification. Are you duty bound to blindly listen to any one advice? Are you? No. Right? You respect it and that's why the Prophet ﷺ said, seek istafti qalbak, seek an answer from your heart. Even if people give you an answer after an answer, follow the most convincing answer. But what do you ask yourself? Not what do I feel like, but rather asking your heart is to ask yourself which choice would appear to be most likely to be pleasing to Allah. Right? So, وَكَانَ يُحْكَى أن محمد بن إسماعيل البخاري كان يبدأ بكتاب الصلاة على محمد بن الحسن فقال اذهب وتعلم علم الحديث لما رأى أن ذلك العلم أليق بطبعه. And he said it's related that Imam al-Bukhari, Imam Muhammad ibn Ismail al-Bukhari used to attend the gatherings of Muhammad al-Hasan or perhaps of his students, and it was said to him, go and learn meaning focus on the science of hadith. Why? Because he knew that this was closer to his temperament. And it was not just sort of impose my view on you, but because this would be of greater benefit. فَطَلَبَ عِلْمَ الْحَدِيث فَصَارَ فِيهِ مُقَدَّمْ عَلَى جَمِيعِ أَئِمَّةِ الْحَدِيثِ. So he sought the knowledge of hadith and became preeminent in it over all the imams of the science of hadith. Right? وينبغي لطالب العلم ألا يجلس قريبا من الأستاذ عند السبق بغير ضرورة. It is befitting that a seeker of knowledge not sit too close to the teacher during the lesson unless there is a need. بل ينبغي أن يكون بينه وبين الأستاذ قدر القوس, that there should be like a spear's length between them and the teacher. So you should be close enough to be able to benefit, but not too close. Right? In general, I mean, you might be in a masjid this is in general. You might be in a masjid where you and the teacher are reviewing, and you have to sit close because you don't want to disturb others, for example. But this is general guidance. It's not an absolute criteria. The idea is that you have respect, right? You have respect. Right? You have respect for your teacher, even when, for example, one of my teachers said, even if your teacher is treating you as a friend, you deal with them as your teacher. Even if your teacher is treating you as a friend, you have the respect with them that this is my teacher. فَإِنَّهُ أَقْرَبُ إِلَى التَّعْظِيمِ, because it's closer to respect. And then he says, وَيَنْبَغِي لِطَالِبِ الْعِلْمِ أَنْ يَحْتَرِزَ عَنِ الْأَخْلَاقِ الذَّمِيمَةِ. It is befitting the seeker of knowledge that they keep completely away from blameworthy traits of character. فَإِنَّهَا كِلَابٌ مَعْنَوِيَّةٌ, because bad traits of character are like dogs. وقد قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا تدخل الملائكة بيتا فيه كلب أو صورة. That the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم said that the angels don't enter a house in which there is a dog or an image. Right? And bad traits of character are like dogs running in the field of your heart. The angels, this is why the believer strives to be in a state of purity. Why? Because the believer wants angelic states. Good traits of character bring with them light. And knowledge is a light. Right? Knowledge is a light. Bad traits of character bring with them darkness. Right? وَإِنَّمَا يَتَعَلَّمُ الْإِنسَانِ بِوَاسِطَةِ الْمَلَكِ. He says that the human being only learns through inspiration from an angel. وَالْأَخْلَاقُ الذَّمِيمَةُ تُعْرَفُ فِي كِتَابِ الْأَخْلَاقِ. And the blameworthy traits of character are known through the book of Akhlaq. وَكِتَابٌ هَذَا لَا يَحْتَمِلُ بَيَانَهَا. And this work of ours is not large enough, right? And it's not its scope to cover them. And this is why it is critical at each stage of learning, we mentioned this, that as you're studying outward knowledge, you should always have one text that you're covering of practical spirituality, that which enables you to work on improving your conduct and your character as a believer, as a seeker of knowledge, not theoretical knowledge, right? Because there's also theoretical spirituality, etc., but that which you need to improve your relationship with Allah, that which you need to improve your relationship with Allah, mighty and majestic. وخصوصا عن التكبر ومع التكبر لا يحصل العلم. And he says it's most incumbent to avoid any semblance of haughtiness or arrogance, because knowledge does not come with arrogance. And then he quotes a line of poetry: العلم حرب للفتى المتعالي كالسيل حرب للمكان العالي. So he says, it is said that knowledge is at enmity to a young man who is haughty, like a stream of water is at enmity to a high place. If there's water on a high place, what's going to happen to it? It's going to come down. And it won't stay there. It'll find a way down. Similarly, pride does not come with knowledge. And he quotes the completion of these lines in some copies. So this is the issue of avoiding blameworthy character. And this is something that is easy to acquire bad traits of character as a student of knowledge. Before you thought, I'm a weak Muslim, I'm a loser, I'm this and that, whatever. Now, once you have a little bit of knowledge, you can easily think you know more than other Muslims. I'm better than other Muslims. They don't know how to use this. Someone's using the siwak, they're not using it properly. You see, a sister who's become a student of knowledge, she's saying, that person has their hijab on wrong. This person is this way. So you sort of walk around with your nose 20, 30 degrees above normal, right? And no, right? Any understanding of deen that diminishes this, diminishes your respect for others. Your humility is a disservice. That's why we need to have respect and gratitude for knowledge, right? And the respect is out of recognizing that these are blessings from Allah. The knowledge itself, the teacher, your fellow students, the instruments and means of knowledge, the books of knowledge. All of these things, we have a relationship of respect for them. Another of the critical places where we have respect is respect in listening. Listening within class. A lot of people within class, you see them looking at their cell phones. Right? And one of the things a lot of fiqh students don't realize, particularly in the Hanafi school, that there is a legal ruling to being attentive in class. What's the legal ruling of being attentive in class? In a dars? For adults, you don't have to be attentive. You're still not morally responsible. Alhamdulillah. One of my kids, my wife, when they were much smaller, said, have you prayed Isha? I said, no. Said, why don't you? Said, Mommy, I'm not, you don't have to actually tell me to pray till I'm 7, and I'm really tired. That's a fair point. I was only 6 at the time. So I just asked, what would the Sahaba do if reminded to pray? So he literally jumped up on the bed and started praying. Then he realized he wasn't facing the Qibla, so he turned around. Then he realized he was on the bed, so he took a step down from the bed. Subhanallah. Right? The ruling of listening in class, of being attentive in a khutbah, right? Whether it's the khutbah of Jum'ah, the same thing applies if you're attending a nikah ceremony. Or if you're sitting in a dars. Do you have to attend any particular dars? Do you? No. But if you are attending, it is from respect for knowledge that you be attentive. Someone messages you, if it's not important, don't answer. But if it is important, the adab is you step away from the majlis, attend to whatever you have to attend to without disturbing anyone else, and then you deal with it. Unless it's a real emergency, your wife's in hospital or your husband is, having some issue. But generally, but those things are limited to the extent of the genuine necessity. But someone being in class and, say, sorry, Shaykh, I was looking up the hadith while you're talking. You're looking up the hadith, but you're also following it was on a tablet. So if I'm looking at the student, I can tell that they were not only checking that, but they're also looking at the score of the Real Madrid game, which piqued my interest because I grew up in Madrid, or things like that. That's got nothing to do with seeking knowledge. The same thing applies. So in a class, it's either a religious obligation or at least the sunnah that we sit attentively. If you can't, you're allowed to walk away. You don't have to attend a class. Right? But even if you attend a marriage, etc., this is, whoever is speaking of religion is speaking on behalf of Allah and His Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and being respectful to Allah and His Messenger entails we have respect for those speaking on their behalf. Similarly, if we were repeating our lesson, we do so with attentiveness, with respect. We have respect when asking questions. We have respect when asking questions. Why? Because we're not asking about what is the best lineup to make the most of the new defensive midfielder for our local team. That, we're talking, you're asking about deen, so you ask with this concern that if I were to be able to ask Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how would I ask? And if someone's not worthy of respect, first, you don't study with them. Number 2, don't ask them questions. Sometimes people come and say, Shaykh, what's your opinion about such and such? First, about it, you want to know what one sound way of understanding the teachings of Allah and His Messenger is, I can share that. But it's not my opinion. It's not my opinion. لَيْسَ الدِّينُ بِالرَّأْيِ. Religion is not by opinion, as Imam Abu Hanifa said. Imam Abu Hanifa said, if religion was opinion, I would give twice the inheritance to the woman as I would to the man. I would say that you wipe the bottom of the khuf, not the top. I would say that if you use the toilet, you should make ghusl, because it's filth. And other things that require ghusl, I would say just need to make wudu, because they're differed upon as to whether they're filthy or not. But religion is not by mere opinion. So this is a key. This is a key, that we respect these matters. Okay, now the next section, we're looking bi'idhnillahi ta'ala at striving and consistency and high resolve in the seeking of religious knowledge. Striving and having high resolve. Right? And basically, striving, and the Prophet ﷺ summarized what we're going to look at in 3 words. Right? The Prophet ﷺ said, Utitu jawami al-kalim. I was granted encompassing speech. He said, وَهُوَ خَيْرُ قَائِلٍ عليه الصلاة والسلام القصد تبلغ. Nobody can speak like Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Al-qasd, remain purposeful and you shall reach. Al-qasd, once one of my teachers put, it took me 20 years to understand what he was saying, or at least some of what he was saying. He said that qasd is a 6-dimensional concept. Right? Because the word qasd in Arabic, because what kind of word is it? Qasd? Qasada yaqsidu qasdan. What is it? It's a masdar. Right? So the masdar, the verbal noun, indicates either the action taking place or the consequence of the action. So al-qasd has to do with purpose, intention, the means of fulfilling that purpose, how you take the means of fulfilling that purpose, remaining purposeful, and avoiding veering left and right from that. So those are the 6. Having a purpose, having an ultimate purpose. What are you doing with this? The driving intention. Why are you doing it? The path to fulfill the purpose. Because someone asks, I say, I'm going to Uskudar. How are you going there? I don't know. Will they get there? Not until they figure out how to get there. But also how you take that path. Right? How you take the path and how you avoid veering away from that path and remaining consistently therein. All of that is al-qasd, al-qasd. Remain purposeful. Remain purposeful. Tabluhu. You shall attain. And you shall attain. Sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. So he said, rahimahullahu ta'ala, ثم لا بد من الجد والمواظبة والملازمة لطالب العلم وإليه الإشارة في القرآن بقوله سبحانه وتعالى يا يحيى خذ الكتاب بقوة. And that is what's indicated by Allah Most High telling. So the student must have resolve, consistency, and remaining committed in seeking knowledge. And that's what's indicated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us in the Quran, O Yahya, addressing Sayyidina Yahya alayhi salam, O Yahya, grasp the book firmly. Grasp the book firmly, meaning with complete resolve. With complete resolve. وقوله تعالى والذين جاهدوا فينا لنهدينهم سبلنا. And those who strive for our sake, we shall surely guide to our pathways. From Surah Al-Ankabut. This is an amazing, amazing verse. Those who strive, literally in us. And much has been said about the tafsir of this verse, the most comprehensive tafsir I've seen, that why I say literally those who strive in us, it means lana wa bina wa ma'ana. For our sake, for us, by us, with us. وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا. Those who strive for us, sincerely, by us, reliant on us, with us, striving to be present with Allah in our seeking. And those who strive for our sake, we shall surely guide to the pathways to us. Lana, bina, wa ma'ana. With us, for us, by us, with us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is a promise. If you strive for the sake of Allah and you continue striving, Allah has promised that you will, لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ, we shall indeed surely guide to the pathways towards. It's a divine guarantee. قِيلَ مَنْ طَلَبَ شَيْئًا وَجَدَّ وَجَدْ. It is said that whoever seeks something and strives shall find it. وَمَنْ قَرَعَ الْبَابِ وَلَجَّ وَلَجْ. And whoever knocks on the door and keeps knocking, they'll enter. Although, of course, when it comes to divine favor and mercy, one of my favorite quotes in Islam is that Sayyidah Rabi'a al-Adawiyya, once she passed by one of the righteous ulama of the Salaf, Salih al-Murri, who was telling a group of students that whoever keeps knocking on the door, it is expected that it will open for them. من أدمن قرع الباب يوشك أن يفتح له. So she called out as she was walking by, she said, الباب مفتوح يا بطال. The door is wide open, O you who are so lazy. إنما أنت المعرض عنه. It is but you who have turned away from it. إذا سألك عبادي عني فإني قريب. My servants and ask you regarding me, I am near. أجيب, I answer. But we don't answer him. أجيب دعوة الداعي إذا دعان. I answer the call of those who call upon me when they call. فليستجيبوا لي. But the problem isn't from Allah, the problem is from me. Let them answer my call. وَلْيُؤْمِنُوا بِي. And let them truly believe in me. لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْشُدُونَ. So that they may be rightly guided back to me. Okay? So, وَقِيلَ بِقَدْرِ مَا تَتَعَنَّى تَنَالُ مَا تَتَمَنَّى. It is said that to the extent that you remain purposefully focused, you will attain that which you wish for. وقيل يحتاج في التعلم والتفقه إلى الجد ثلاثة. And it is said that in seeking knowledge and acquiring understanding of religion, you need striving in three matters. في التعلم, with respect to learning. والأستاذ, and the teacher. والأب. So that the student needs resolve, jid, striving. What? To put in their time. If you at least imitate the people of dunya, a full-time week is 40 hours. At least 40 hours. Anybody who wants to get ahead in their career, do they only work full-time? Someone's trying to become a successful lawyer, they're trying to get ahead in their career, would they just work the bare minimum hours? Yeah, they'll do more, right? And they might be getting certifications and other things above and beyond that if they want to get ahead in their career. Now, if you're a student of knowledge, the basic student of knowledge, if you're a full-time student of knowledge, is that you do what a full-time professional does, right? Rather, you're supposed to do more. But also the teacher has to have striving. The teacher will have a lot of responsibilities that they have to give their time and their attention and their focus and all these things. And the father, إن كان في الأحياء, if the father is still alive. Why? Because it used to be said that if the son is an adult and they're seeking knowledge and the father is able to provide, it remains obligatory for the father to provide for their children if they want to seek knowledge. But then the fuqaha said that is only if the student, it's not an unconditional obligation. This is only if the student is dedicated to learning and has the basic akhlaq, the basic character of the student of knowledge, not just any fool. أنشدني الشيخ الإمام الأجل الأستاذ شديد الدين السراجي رحمه الله للشافعي, right? And they said that these lines are related from Imam al-Shafi'i. الجد يدني كل أمر وَالْجِدُّ يَفْتَحُ كُلَّ بَابٍ مُغْلَقِ. With striving, all matters are drawn close and attainable. And striving opens all closed doors. وَأَحَقُّ خَلْقِ اللَّهِ بِالْهَمِّ امْرُؤٌ ذُو هِمَّةٍ يُبْلَى بِعَيْشٍ ضَيِّقِ. And the most deserving of Allah's creation to have concern is someone of high resolve, who squanders their resolve in this constrained worldly living. وَمِنَ الدَّلِيلِ عَلَى الْقَضَاءِ وَحُكْمِهِ بُؤْسُ اللَّبِيبِ وَطِيبُ عَيْشِ الْأَحْمَقِ. And from the proof of divine decree is that the smart person lives sad and the fool is happy. Meaning this worldly life is, you see intelligent people, because they're thinking, I'm going to die, I'm accountable, etc. So smart people are sad and fools are happy. Right? He said this is itself shows you how worthless this life is. Right? ولكن من رزق الحجة حرم الغنى وضدان يفترقان أي تفرق. However, anyone who's been granted deep intellect is prevented from wealth, meaning prevented from merely seeking worldly wealth, because you're not going to take it to the grave. So the truly intelligent, this is the one who has true religious intelligence, they would not only seek worldly wealth, because opposites do not meet and are always ever separate. Right? So this is right regarding directing our resolve to Allah. And then he says, وَأُنْشِدْتُ لِغَيْرِهِ. And I've heard from other than him, تمنيت أن تمسي فقيها مناظرا بغير غناء فالجنون فنون وليس اكتساب المال دون مشقة تحملها فالعلم كيف يكون. So he said, you wish to become an adept jurist who can debate others, but you have no means to do so. We have no means to do so. He said, madness has many manifestations. And what is the indication? That you have to have some way to seek knowledge. Just today I was with one of my good friends, Shaykh Ahmed Snobar, and someone was contacted him from Germany and said they want to come here to study. He said, do you have a means to support yourself? He said, no. He said, I advise a student of knowledge to have some way of even earning some money on the side while fully focusing their knowledge, because you're not going to survive on hot air, right? So you have to have some means. And you cannot acquire wealth without striving, right? Likewise with knowledge. How can you acquire it, i.e. without knowledge, without money, and without striving for the knowledge itself, right? So this is from وقال أبو الطيب. And Abu Tayyib, and this is one of the very interesting poets, if you want to read something very interesting. Abu Tayyib is, who's Abu Tayyib? Students of knowledge should know Abu Tayyib. Abu Tayyib is al-Mutanabbi. And he is a very fascinating creature. Of course, a very fascinating believer. Very interesting. A lot of the poetry ascribed to him is not actually by Abu Tayyib al-Mutanabbi. Especially Google. If you start searching things online, see all kinds of things ascribed to all kinds of people, and they're not by them. So he says, this is a scary line of poetry. وَلَمْ أَرَى فِي عُيُوبِ النَّاسِ عَيْبًا كَنَقْصِ الْقَادِرِينَ عَلَى التَّمَامِ. I have not seen of the blameworthy qualities of people any blameworthy quality like those able falling short from completion. وَلَا بُدَّ لِطَالِبِ الْعِلْمِ مِنْ سَهَرِ اللَّيَالِ. And the seeker of knowledge must stay up at night. And the seeker of knowledge must stay up at night. Right? Now, of course, this used to be a matter that in the old days, what would happen? When it became nighttime, people would, and they didn't have electricity or lighting on the streets or in the homes. You'd have to light a candle or a lantern, right? So that people would be given easily to sleep, right? And there's a lot of evidence that those before the age of electricity would sleep a lot more than we did. Because it'd be hard to stay up at night. It would require effort. Kind of dangerous at night. Imagine walking around your home without a light on. Would you stumble? Would you stumble if all the lights were off and you went to the washroom? Yeah. So similarly, this advice on staying up at night has to be contextualized. Right? What does it have to be contextualized with? Their times. In our times, because we have, devices of mass destruction, or mass distraction, just in our hands, a lot of people don't sleep enough. Right? But what's meant by staying up at night is to make the most of the night for seeking of knowledge and devotion. Right? This is after giving your body its due. After giving your body its due. Right? So this line of poetry says, بقدر الكد تكتسب المعالي ومن طلب العلا سهر الليالي تروم العزة ثم تنام ليلا يغوص البحر من طلب اللآلي علو القدر بالهمم العوالي وعز المرء في سهر الليالي. He said, to the extent of your striving will you attain high matters, and whoever seeks high attainment stays up at night. But stays up at night with the beneficial. Doesn't mean you go to have Iskandar kebab and the Yemeni restaurant and this restaurant, and you try out some fancy ice cream, but this is, you stay up at night in seeking knowledge. You seek honor, but then you sleep all night. The one who seeks pearls dives deep in the ocean. High rank is attained by high resolve, and a person's honor is through staying up at night. Staying up at night in devotion and in. So he says, تركت النوم ربي في الليالي لأجل رضاك يا مولى الموالي. I have left sleep at night, O Lord, seeking your pleasure, O Master of all masters. ومن رام العلا من غير كد أضاع العمر في طلب المحال. And whoever seeks high attainment without striving wastes their life in seeking the absurd. فوفقني إلهي إلى تحصيل علم يبلغني إلى أقصى المعالي. So grant me success in acquiring great knowledge that will make me attain the highest of high matters. The highest of high matters is to follow the beloved of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to the stations of the closeness, love, and eternal good pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we can hear the divine call, يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية فادخلي في عبادي وادخلي جنتي. O soul, contentedly at rest. يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة. Return to your Lord, well pleased and well pleasing. So enter upon my servants and enter my paradise. Right? So some people are just granted admission. Others are of those who are deserving of admission. And there's others who are not seeking admission. They're seeking the one who admits. Enter amongst my servants, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. قيل اتخذ الليل جملا تدرك به أملا. They said, take the night as your mount and you will attain all that you wish for. وقد اتفق لي نظم في هذا المعنى. He says, and I was able to compose some lines of poetry regarding this. من شاء أن يحتوي آماله جملة فليتخذ ليله في دركها جملا أقلل طعامك كي تحظى به سهرا إن شئت يا صاحبي أن تبلغ الكملا. So he says, whoever seeks to attain what they aspire to completely, let them take the night in attaining it as their mount or as their means. Reduce your eating so that you are able to stay up. Reduce your eating, meaning in accordance with the sunnah. Right? In accordance with the sunnah. The Prophet ﷺ said, the human being fills no stomach worse than their stomach. It is sufficient to them to eat a few small morsels to keep their back straight. If you must, then a third for your food, a third for your drink, and a third to keep your back straight. And few ever do that. وَلَا بُدَّ, right? He says, so he says, if you seek to attain high attainment, he says, وَقِيلَ مَنْ أَسْهَرَ نَفْسَهُ بِاللَّيْلِ فَقَدْ فَرَّحَ قَلْبَهُ فِي النَّهَارِ. They said, whoever stays up at night, meaning stays up to have some seeking of knowledge, some devotion at night, their heart, their spiritual heart will be rejoicing by day. وَلَا بُدَّ لِطَالِبِ الْعِلْمِ مِنَ الْمُوَاظَبَةِ عَلَى الدَّرْسِ. And likewise, it is absolutely necessary for the student of knowledge to have consistency in their classes. وَالتِّكْرَارِ فِي أَوَّلِ اللَّيْلِ وَآخِرِهِ. And to review their knowledge at the beginning of the night and the end of the night. فَإِنَّ مَا بَيْنَ الْعِشَاءَيْنِ وَوَقْتَ السَّحَرِ وَقْتٌ مُبَارَكٌ. Because the time between the two ishas, meaning between Maghrib and Isha, and the time before dawn, the time of Sahar, that's when we have the pre-dawn meal, the sahur, right? تَسَحَّرُوا فَإِنَّ السَّحُورَ بَرَكَةٌ. Have sahur because that meal and the time you eat it is blessed. Right? It's a blessed time. Right? وقيل يا طالب العلم باشر الورع وجنب النوم واترك الشبع. And it said that, O seeker of knowledge, hold fast to scrupulousness, avoid excessive sleep, and leave eating your fill. داوم على الدرس لا تفارقه فالعلم بالدرس قام وارتفع. And be consistent in your classes. Do not leave them. Do not leave attending them. There's three elements to a class. Like a student of knowledge is one who prepares for the class properly, who attends the class attentively, and who reviews the class diligently. Right? Diligently, consistently, without fail. The sign you study, if you ask, what did you do last time? You could review the dars fully. Just seeking knowledge is to know. Anything short of that, you're just there for the ride. Right? It's like you went to med school and now say, okay, now you're a doctor. Patients come say, he needs surgery. I don't know what to do. He said, what's this in my ear? So let me check the medical books. Okay? Traditional, knowledge is to know. Okay? Everything else is pretense. Well, I can research it. That's not. Right? And then he says, وَيَغْتَنِمُ أَيَّامَ الْحَدَاثَةِ وَعُنْفُوَانَ الشَّبَابِ. And one makes the most of the time of youth. Right? Right? One makes the most of the time of youth and the fullness of one's young age. كما قيل بقدر الكد تعطى ما تروم فمن رام المنى ليلا يقوم وأيام الحداثة فاغتنمها ألا إن الحداثة لا تدوم. It is said that he said, by striving, you will be granted all that you seek. So whoever seeks what they aspire to, at night would they stand. And the days of your young age, make the most of them. Truly, your young age will not last. Afterwards, you'll have time, you have all these books. You wish you had the time to read them, but you have many things you have to serve the Muslims with. Right? One of my teachers said said about Damascus, that study with the urgency that you don't have time here. So for example, one of my teachers said that finish studying the ikhtiyar of almost in 1 year. That meant we had to have 6 to 7 classes a day to finish the ikhtiyar. But he said, but also do the maraqi and this and that. Like, so what do? Just listen to your teachers and just fall in love with them. They're not telling you anything that you cannot do. Just have to trust them. Right? Alhamdulillah, you just follow. Right? You just follow. Because they know what they're doing. But that is rare indeed. Everybody has their own theory and opinion except for listening to the teacher. It's not, especially Westerners, we're the worst at this. Everybody has their theory of seeking knowledge. None of them have attained anything. But with that, he says, وَلَا يُجْهِدُ نَفْسَهُ جُهْدًا يُضْعِفُ النَّفْسِ حَتَّى يَنْقَطِعَ عَنِ الْعَمَلِ. However, one does not overexert oneself nor weaken oneself in a manner that would prevent one from continuing in one's good deeds. بَلْ يَسْتَعْمِلُ الرِّفْقَ فِي ذَلِكَ. But rather, one uses gentleness in that. So you have to have diplomacy with yourself as well. وَالرِّفْقُ أَصْلٌ عَظِيمٌ فِي جَمِيعِ الْأَشْيَاءِ. Gentleness is a tremendous principle in all matters. قال الحبيب الأعظم رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ألا إن هذا الدين متين فأوغل فيه برفق. Our beloved صلى الله عليه وسلم said, truly this religion is vast and deep. So enter its depths gently. ولا تبغض على نفسك عبادة الله تعالى. And do not make devotion to Allah odious to yourself. Why? فإن المنبت لا أرضا قطع ولا ظهرا أبقى. Because the one who heads out too fast, unthinkingly, travels no distance, and does not preserve their mount. And what is your mount? It is you. Right? So the one who heads out, who rushes out unthinkingly, like seeking knowledge is like a marathon. You don't just sit on the side and say, let me try all the energy drinks on the way, because you won't make it to your destination. Right? Then you have to try out all the restroom stops on the way as well. And then you go grab a coffee, etc. The race will end and you didn't cross the finishing line. But at the same time, if you run in a marathon like you would run in a short 100-meter dash, how many meters could you run? Nowhere near the 40 kilometers plus that the marathon is. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم نفسك مطيتك. Right? It's come from the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم that yourself is your mount. فارفق بها. So go easy on it. ولا بد لطالب العلم من الهمة العالية في العلم. And it is necessary for the seeker of knowledge to have high resolve in seeking knowledge. Yeah, somebody, what are you doing? Oh, like people, they make, if you could, a lot of students of knowledge are between moaning and groaning. Oh, ooh, like all these weird sounds. And what are you doing? And they're not, they don't have clarity. Right? But rather, he says, فإن المرء يطير بهمته كالطير, because a person flies with their resolve like a bird. يطير بجناحيه, who flies with both wings. You know, birds are trying to fly, they don't just flap once and okay, you go up and then say, okay, flap again, I'll be up. Flap again. No, if you just flap once or twice, will the bird get airborne? Now, once you're flying, it can look like you're coasting, but it's quite a lot of effort to stay in the air too, right? But the student of knowledge is like the bird trying to fly. You can't just flap your wings a couple of times. You know, where will you be? And another scary poem by our friend Abu Tayyib, meaning al-Mutanabbi, who said, على قدر العزم تأتي العزائم وتأتي على قدر الكرام المكارم وتعظم في عين الصغير صغارها وتصغر في عين العظيم العظائم. It's hard to give to the extent of one's resolve are high matters reached, and to the extent of one's honor is one honored. In the eyes of the small, small things seem great, while in the eyes of the great, great things seem small. Right? And so this is the, and there are some copies that have an extra few lines of poetry here, but I'm going to do myself a favor and pretend that the extra lines of poetry aren't in authentic copies, but it's emphasizing the same meaning. It says, يا طالب العلم أنت فارس وغيرك راجل. It says, know, O seeker of knowledge, that others are, that you are a rider, right? You are a rider while others are walking. وعلمك حارس, and your knowledge is your guardian. يحشر الناس يوم القيامة عريانا. People are resurrected on the day of judgment naked. وأنت بنور العلم لابس, and you will be clothed in the light of knowledge. ويوضع لكل شيء منبر, and for everything there will be a minbar from which it's proclaimed, these are the people of such and such. والعالم تحت العرش جالس. So people will be called on according to what distinguished them. But the people of knowledge will be sitting under the throne of the divine. There'll be categories of people will be shaded under the shade of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And from them are the people of knowledge. Okay? If they sincerely strived to live their knowledge for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So he says, يا طالب العلم إلزم الورع واهجر النوم واترك الشبع. So he repeats, O seeker of knowledge, hold fast to scrupulousness. Leave sleep, meaning leave excess sleep. Of course, as you know, the L here is a referential L. Which sleep do you leave? Excess sleep, lazy sleep. Not all sleep, because your body has rights over you. And leave eating your fill. And then he says, يا طالب العلم فاجتهد بالليل, O seeker of knowledge, so strive by night, والنهار, and by day. فإن تحصيل العلم بالجهد والتكرار, because attaining knowledge is through striving and review. وإن لكل شيء آفة, and truly everything has an ailment. وآفة العلم ترك الجهد, and the ailment of knowledge is to leave striving, والتكرار, and to leave review. And then he says, what is the key to acquiring knowledge? He explains, والرأس في تحصيل الأشياء الجد والهمة. The basis of acquiring anything is striving and high resolve. فمن كانت همته حفظ جميع كتب محمد الحسن واقترن بذلك الجد والمواظبة فالظاهر أنه يحفظ أكثرها أو نصفها. So if someone made their goal that they wanted to memorize all the books of Muhammad ibn al-Hasan, and they conjoined that with resolve and striving, they would memorize most of them or half of them. فأما إذا كانت همة عالية ولم يكن له جد. But if one had high resolve, but they had no striving, or أو كان له جد ولم يكن له همة عالية, or someone has striving, but they don't have high resolve. You come to Istanbul and you want to seek knowledge, you said, you know what, I want to do calligraphy. Okay. And you work really hard to learn all kinds of calligraphy. Nice. I have a good friend, Shaykh al-Ghouj, who used to be a world-class calligrapher. He participated in many international competitions of calligraphy, but then he decided to dedicate himself to knowledge. He left calligraphy. I visited with him this Institute of World Calligraphy here in Istanbul, and there are pieces, things in the catalog of his calligraphy, but he left it for the sake of Allah to dedicate himself to knowledge. Then he saw there's a need for publishing, so he's published well over 1,200 books so far in the last 23 years. May Allah protect him and all our scholars. Right? So someone has striving, but they don't have a high resolve. لا يحصل له العلم إلا قليل. They will only acquire a little knowledge. Someone will decide, you know what? I'm really curious about the doner. How does it revolve without the meat falling off? So they go and work hard day and night, learning how to make doner. They may learn, and they might start a successful business back in Holland. But how much knowledge will they gain? Not much. Someone else decides, I want to make good coffee. Spend lots of time doing that, not seeking knowledge. So we shouldn't be like that. وكان الشيخ الإمام الأجل الأستاذ رضي الدين النيسابوري في كتاب مكارم الأخلاق قال أن ذا القرنين لما أراد أن يسافر ليستولي على المشرق والمغرب شاور الحكماء. So it's said in this work by Naysaburi on Makarim al-Akhlaq that Dhul Qarnayn, the one mentioned in the Quran, when he wanted to travel to take over the east and the west, he consulted the wise. وقال كيف أسافر لهذا القدر من الملك? How would I have traveled this far? فإن الدنيا قليلة فانية, because the worldly life is brief and fleeting. وملك الدنيا أمر حقير, and this worldly life is something low and paltry. فليس هذا علو الهمة, and this is not from high resolve. So he consulted, because he was told to travel the world and conquer. قال الحكماء سافر ليحصل لك ملك الدنيا والآخرة. Right? قال هذا حسن. So they told him, travel so that you may attain the dominion of this life and the next. Travel for the sake of Allah. Don't seek this for yourself, seek it for Allah. وقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن الله تعالى يحب معالي الأمور ويكره سفاسفها. Our beloved Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, truly Allah loves high matters and dislikes paltry ones, which is why we seek the highest of matters. Right? Seek the highest of matters. If you seek knowledge, don't say, I'll learn a couple of things and blah, blah. No. The sunnah is, someone asked Shaykh Abdurrahman al-Shahuri to say that I don't feel I'm sincere. I'm thinking just to learn a little bit and that would be enough. And he moved his finger and said, Mish Shaykh. So what does Allah Most High say in the Quran? وَجَعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ شُو? He said, make us for the mindful servants of Allah. What? He said, مَا قَالْ خُدَّامَ. He said, didn't say servants. قال إِمَامَ. He said, make us the foremost of your mindful servants. You don't just want to be amongst, just serving the people of taqwa. You don't just want to be included amongst them. You don't want to be one of them. You want to be of the best of Allah's servants, the muttaqeen. You want to be imams, exemplars for the people of taqwa. You want to be the very best of the best. Why? Because you want the greatest possible share of the love, closeness, and good pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَقِيلَ فَلَا تَعْجَلْ بِأَمْرِكَ وَاسْتَدِمْهُ فَمَا صَلَّ عَصَاكَ كَالْمُسْتَدِيمِ. Right? That don't hasten in your affairs. Don't be hasten in your affairs and remain constant, because nothing will straighten your matters like consistency. So you feel you're crooked, right? You have a crooked stick. How do you straighten it? You have to apply constant pressure. You try to twist it around once or twice. Will it get straightened? No. But you put constant pressure and just leave it there, what will happen? It'll get straightened out. قيل قال أبو حنيفة لأبو يوسف كنت بليدا فأخرجتك المواظفة al-muadaba. So it said that Abu Yusuf said, Abu Hanifa said to Abu Yusuf, you are dumb, but your consistency took you out from your weak-mindedness. وَإِيَّاكَ وَالْكَسَلْ فَإِنَّهُ شُؤْمٌ. And beware of laziness, for it is reprehensible. وَآفَةٌ عَظِيمَةٌ, a tremendous ill. وقال الشيخ الإمام Abu Nasr al-Saffari, and Abu Nasr al-Saffari al-Ansari said, يا نفس لا ترخي عن العمل. O self, do not leave actions في البر والعدل والإحسان في مهل, in virtue and being just and in an excellence, leaving them aside. فكل ذي عمل في الخير مختبط, because anyone who keeps working in good attains. And وفي بلاء وشؤم كل ذي كسل, but in tribulation and ill are all that are lazy. قال المصنف وقد اتفق لي في هذا المعنى, and he himself wrote some lines of poetry regarding this, that O self, leave laziness and putting things off, right? Otherwise be content to remain in humiliation, right? For I have seen nothing for the lazy except attainment of loss and regret and being prevented from attaining their hopes, right? And it is said, how many, وَكَمْ مِنْ حَيَاءٍ, and how much shame and how much inability and how much sorrow comprehensively is attained by a person who is lazy. Like what do they attain? But sorrow and woe. إياك عن الكسل في البحث عن شبه ما قد علمت وما قد شك من كسلي. Right? And beware of being lazy in investigating matters that you don't know, right? And anything arising out of laziness, that don't hold back, but strive. And then he gives an amazing insight that why are people lazy, right? Why do people procrastinate? He said, وَقَدْ قِيلَ يَحْصُلُ الْكَسَلْ مِنْ قِلَّةِ التَّأَمُّلِ فِي مَنَاقِبِ الْعِلْمِ وَفَضَائِلِهِ. It is said that laziness in seeking knowledge occurs through little reflection in the virtues of knowledge and its merits. فَيَنْبَغِي لِلْمُتَعَلِّمْ أَنْ يُتْعِبَ نَفْسَهُ عَلَى التَّحْصِيلِ. Right? So it is befitting the student to exert themselves to their utmost in acquiring knowledge, وَالْجِدْ, and in striving, وَالْمُوَاظَبَةِ, and consistency, with reflection, بِالتَّأَمُّلِ فِي فَضَائِلِ الْعِلْمِ, with reflection on the merits of knowledge. You should have a curriculum of books on the virtues of knowledge and listen to the teachings of the ulama on the merits of knowledge. For example, the book of knowledge of Imam al-Ghazali is taught by Shaykh Hamza Yusuf. It's taught by Shaykh Abdul Hakim Murad. It is taught by Shaykh Muhammad al-Yaqubi. It's taught by Shaykh Nuh Keller. All of them have teachings of these that are available, and others of our great teachers. And there's other books on the merits of knowledge, both in English and in Arabic. Ibn Jama'ah's work, Tadhkiratu al-Sami' wal-Mutakallim. If you look for Ibn Jama'ah, probably the only book of his translated into English. It's available. And other books. And there's great Arab scholars who've taught these. Likewise, the sections on the virtues of knowledge in Riyadh al-Salihin, in At-Targhib wa-Tarhib of al-Mundhiri, and other such books. But also reading the biographies of the scholars. فَإِنَّ الْعِلْمَ يَبْقَى بِبَقَاءِ الْمَعْلُومَاتِ وَالْمَالُ يَفْنَى. Because knowledge remains, because the things known remain. And wealth is extinguished. كما قال أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب رضي الله تعالى عنه رضينا قسمة الجبار فينا لنا علم وللأعداء مال. Right? So he said that it is related from Amir al-Mu'mineen Sayyidina Ali that he said, we are content with the apportionment of the all-powerful for us we have knowledge and our enemies have wealth. Right? They have wealth. فإن المال لا يفنى عن قريب وإن العلم يبقى لا يزال. For wealth perishes quickly and knowledge remains, because it doesn't just remain in this life, its benefit remains into the hereafter. والعلم النافع يحصل به حسن الذكر. Right? And beneficial knowledge, through it, one has good mention in creation. ويبقى ذلك بعد وفاته. And that remains even after your death. فإنه حياة باقية أبدية. So it's a lasting, ongoing life. وأنشد الشيخ الأجل ظهير الدين مفتي الأمة الحسن بن علي المعروف بالمرغناني رحمه الله تعالى. This Imam ظهير الدين المرغناني. الجاهلون فموت قبل موتهم والعالمون وإن ماتوا فأحياء. He said that the ignorant are dead even before they die, and those of knowledge, even when dead, are alive. And Imam al-Marghinani said, وَفِي الْجَهْلِ قَبْلَ الْمَوْتِ مَوْتٌ لِأَهْلِهِ. That in ignorance there's death before death for the people of ignorance. فَأَجْسَامُهُمْ قَبْلَ الْقُبُورِ قُبُورُ. For their bodies, even before the grave, are like graves. وَإِنَّ امْرَأً لَمْ يَحْيَى بِالْعِلْمِ مَيِّتٌ فَلَيْسَ فِيهِ حِينَ النُّشُورِ نُشُورُ. Because a person who's not brought their life to life through knowledge, they will have no life to be resurrected to once they are resurrected. And it's also said that the person of knowledge remains alive even after their death, and their limbs are under the grave extinguished, and their limbs are under the grave extinguished. And a person of ignorance is dead even when they're walking. They're thought to be of the living, but they are non-existent. And then he said, وَقِيلَ, and it is said, حَيَاةُ الْقَلْبِ عِلْمٌ فَاغْتَنِمْهُ. The life of hearts is knowledge, so acquire it. وَمَوْتُ الْقَلْبِ جَهْلٌ فَاجْتَنِبْهُ. And the death of hearts is ignorance, so avoid it. And he also quotes other poetry. He really likes poetry. And the ulama like poetry because it contains so much wisdom. العلم تاج للفتى والعقل طوق من ذهب. Knowledge is like a crown for a young man, for the young. And intellect is an adornment from gold. والعلم نور يتلظى is light that is effulgent. والجهل نار تلتهب. And ignorance is like a dark fire consuming. The one is a radiant, effulgent light that benefits. The other is a consuming, destroying, dark light. And he quotes Imam al-Marghinani with a lengthy poem regarding this, emphasizing this meaning. So we're going to skip some of the poetry here because he has a lot of poetry. But he said, right? He says, وَكَفَى بِلَذَّةِ الْعِلْمِ وَالْفِقْهِ وَالْفَهْمِ دَاعِيًا وَبَاعِثًا لِلْعَاقِلِ. It's sufficient for the one of intelligence to know that there is a joy to knowledge. And a person of intellect, meaning even if they were a person of purely worldly concern, they would see this as being something of importance. And then he gives other reasons that are health related for laziness. So he looks at that. So we'll continue from there. And basically, as a student of knowledge, you take care of your diet, right? Because to have discipline, you have to have the strength, right, to be able to dedicate your time to knowledge, right? So he shared today that have high resolve, right? And for that, we should have a regular plan. You plan your year, try to read 1, 2, 3, 4 or more books on the virtues of knowledge, and likewise, read always try to read the biographies of the scholars and the righteous. You should know the biographies of your own teachers, their teachers. Right? Sometimes I mention someone in class and say, who is he? He's like the teacher of your teachers. So, شادي القوم أعد لي ذكر من زار وسار تاركا في القلب نورا تاركا في الجسم نار. Said, O singer of the caravan, repeat for me mention of those who traveled and reached, leaving in the heart, in the heart light, and leaving in the body the fire of resolve. Right? And that's why Imam Abu Hanifa said, a little of the mention of the stories of the righteous is worth more to me than hours spent in studying fiqh. And Imam Abu Hanifa had some interest in fiqh, as you might perhaps be aware. We'll stop there. بإذن الله تعالى وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين وبارك الله تعالى فيكم.